It's time for your daily LSU baseball update with Musso at the box. Now, Matt Musso.
And welcome into another edition of Musso at the box. LSU getting set to take on Southeastern Tuesday night in a rematch of what was a phenomenal game about 3 weeks ago over in Hammond. LSU winning that one 4-3. We will get you a brief preview of that ball game before we end today's show. Not going to go too deep dive on it because we just saw this matchup 3 weeks ago, but we'll run through a few high points of that game and how it could impact the matchup Tuesday night. But what I really want to do today is I really want to put a button on a few things from the weekend versus Florida and I guess answer kind of a question from Twitter. It wasn't really a question. It was more of a cry for help, I guess, in reality. But we'll talk about that. And the thing I want to put a button on from the Florida series is one of the most commented narratives that I've heard, whether it be on Twitter or the YouTube comments or whatnot. And I want to address it because if that many people are talking about it, I feel like it's a conversation that you all want to have, so we will have it. And I'm actually pretty excited to have it. I might not change your mind. You're probably not going to change my mind, but conversation is a good thing, so we will have it. And we're going to get to that here pretty quick off the top. But I will remind you right now, smash the like button. Get subscribed up to the YouTube channel. Get subscribed up on your favorite podcast app. You can follow me all over social media on Twitter at Musso Matthew, Facebook Matt Musso. Anywhere you want, you can find me and follow me there. And I love the interaction, as what's going to be proven by how we really go about today's show. So before we even get to a Southeastern preview, let's go back to this weekend against Florida, and more specifically, Saturday night. Because since Saturday night, the top thing that I have heard or been told or has been commented on Twitter, on YouTube, like we said, is that Jay Johnson left Nate Ackenhausen in the ball game too long. And I will tell you right off the top, I flatly disagree with that. 100%, I do not agree. I do not think that he did. And I will tell you why. I think whenever something goes wrong for a pitcher, specifically, not specifically a relief pitcher, it can be a starter, because we kind of heard the same thing with Thatcher Hurd on Sunday too. The number one, just easiest thing to say is, coach left him in too long. And in some cases, let me be clear, in some cases, that is absolutely true. I don't believe this is one of those cases. When I look at a case where I think that is true, I think there are signs that that pitcher is losing it. I do not believe that was the case with Nate Ackenhausen, and we will go through why momentarily. The other thing I will say is, y'all, I sat here after the Mississippi State series and was very critical of the way LSU used their pitching staff in Starkville, because to me, it didn't make sense. It was puzzling. LSU used their pitching staff correctly against Florida, and we said that in the immediate reaction video for Saturday. We said that in the full weekend recap video as well, and podcast, whatever you want to call it. On Saturday, LSU did exactly what they should have done. They went all in to win the series there because they were in control, and that is 100% the right move. Now, I've heard a lot of different reasons why Nate Ackenhausen was left in too long, and one of them, or I should say I've been told a lot of different reasons from many of you why Nate Ackenhausen, and one of them was extending him. But, y'all, that's how they've used him all year. Like, Nate Ackenhausen threw 3 2/3. He threw 3 2/3 on Saturday night. That ties his longest outing of the season, which, by the way, was his second outing of the season. He had a season high in pitches at 71, but not by much. His previous high was 62. Like, he was right in line with where he had been all year to this point. That's how they had been using him. of Nate Ackenhausen's 7 appearances, only 2 of them were 1-inning performances. Everything else was at least 2 2/3 and up. And again, 3 2/3 tied his longest of the season. So the extension, not the problem. Not the problem. Nate Ackenhausen losing it, not the problem. Like, when I look at a guy, like I said previously, who's been left in too long, there were signs, whether it was leading up to the inning where ultimately it imploded, or whether, it unraveled so quickly that it took so long to get a guy warm that you had to, leave a guy in a little extra. And even then, I don't like he was left in too long, because that's the example we gave with Thatcher Hurd Sunday's game, right? It was, he only threw 4 shutout. He went through the lineup twice. Like, he was rolling. You're not going to take a guy out when he's rolling. That doesn't make any sense. You're counting on him to keep going. Sometimes things happen. I thought they, could they maybe have had somebody warming a little bit? Sure, but he was rolling. Back to Nate Ackenhausen specifically. This is why I say he wasn't losing it. So I think the one point in the game where you could say, man, that got hairy, was the 10th inning, right? That's what everybody's going to point to. Well, he had to escape a bases-loaded jam, and, he expended a lot of energy, and now you're going to put him back out there for a third trip to the lineup. And on the surface, all of that sounds good. Like, on the surface, sure, I would agree with you. But let's dig deeper, because when you dig deeper, Nate Ackenhausen didn't really labor in that inning as much as you think. Shelnut struck out swinging to lead off the 10th, so he's still in a groove. He hits Heyman on a 2-2 pitch. That was ugly. Curlin singles through the right side. That's not great. But you walked the bases loaded intentionally. And I loved that move from Jay Johnson. We talked about this Saturday after the game. It forced Kevin O'Sullivan's hand right then and there, because Neely was in the lineup. Are you going to let your pitcher hit with the bases loaded, or are you going to take him out of the game and have to go to your bullpen? I loved that move. But that's not laboring. You intentionally walked the bases loaded. And after that, like after you force his hand and he pinch hits for Neely, it's a 4-pitch at bat, 1-2 count, fielder's choice. Russell comes up after that, 4-pitch at bat, 1-2 count, strikeout. He got right ahead of everybody. Bam, bam. He was cruising. He wasn't laboring. You go to the 11th inning. Colby Shelton strikes out swinging to begin that inning on 5 pitches, another 1-2 count. He's in control. Like, there's no sign that it's waning. Ty Evans single with 2 strikes. That sucks. Ty Evans has killed LSU dating back to Omaha last year. They have not been able to get him out. And Jay Johnson even said after the game, if they would have gotten Ty Evans out, they would have walked Jack Caglione. But Evans singled, so you have to pitch to Caglione, where you have a left-on-left matchup. You're not taking Nate Ackenhausen out. Jack Caglione crushed the first pitch over the right center field wall. Y'all, he's really stinking good. I know nobody here likes him right now because of everything that happened on Sunday. He's really stinking good. The kid's going to be off the board in July within the first 5 picks, probably the first 3. Big-time players make big-time plays in big-time games in big-time moments. That's what Jack Caglione did. Simple as that. You weren't going to take Nate Ackenhausen out of that game, and here's why. We've talked so much about the depth for LSU, and they do have a lot of pitching depth. But you did not have anyone available that had the experience to be in that moment like Nate Ackenhausen. There is nobody left at that moment that you trust more than him, than the guy you throw out there in a spot start against Tennessee with your season on the line in Omaha and let him go shove for 6 shutout innings. You don't have another one of those guys. Gavin Guidry had already pitched that night. Griffin Herring was awesome on Friday, but was spent. There are guys that have pitched very well for LSU this year, but they don't have the experience in that type of moment when you're trying to go all in to win. Y'all, Fidel Ulloa, you're not going to find a bigger Fidel Ulloa guy than me. I've been sitting here telling you about him since the preseason scrimmages. He's got great stuff. They've put him in tight spots. They ain't never put him in that spot, and they weren't about to right there. Cade Anderson's gotten off to a great start to this season. You're not throwing a freshman in that spot. Not going to happen. That would have been cruel to do that. You just don't have the same trust level there. You'd love to be able to go to a guy like Justin Lohr there, but Justin Lohr has just been too inconsistent this year. He's been the model of inconsistency so far this season. You can't do that. So you stick with Nate Ackenhausen. I believe it was 100% the right move. I believe he was still going strong. I think Jack Caglione's really freaking good and hit a rocket over the right center field wall, and you lost the game. Really unfortunate. Nate Ackenhausen pitched really, really well in that ball game. 3 2/3 for Ack. I lost my box score. 3 2/3 for Ack. 6 strikeouts. He walked 3, but one of them was intentional. So, 2 walks, if you're being honest. Unfortunately, he gave up 3 earned runs. 2 of them on the bomb to Jack Caglione. I think there are certain times you can look and say, yeah, that guy was left in too long. I just fundamentally and flatly disagree that this was one of those times with Nate Ackenhausen. It makes a lot of sense why he was left in when you look at what you had available in the bullpen from a trust standpoint and how he was actually pitching still to that point in the ballgame where he was ahead of every hitter. And, the stuff was good. So I have no problem with the way they handled that. I hope maybe that sheds a little light on why they made that decision. I know I'm probably not going to convince you if you think otherwise, and the same way you're probably not going to convince me because I have no problem with that. So with that, I'd like to put a button on the Florida weekend. I don't really want to go back to that too much in like a, certain aspects of the series. I know I haven't talked about Jay Johnson's ejection. I guess I can do that real fast. For one, I thought it was awesome. I like seeing the emotion from him. We've seen it early here in SEC play. It's something you haven't seen. I'm pretty sure that's the first ejection for him in his time at LSU. You're looking at 2 years and some change. One reason I thought it's awesome is, you've seen in the past where that can fire a team up. It did not do that for LSU. They folded after that, and they flat out did. So, and, Jay talked about that after the game where he's like, yeah, I have different feelings on getting him. Like, people always think it's something, that can you fire a team up. It clearly didn't fire our team up, and he says he views it in a sense that, the players look at it and go, coach is losing his poise, so something must really be wrong. And, he's probably right because they weren't good after he got tossed, and that was disappointing. I could get into this long conversation about the rules and whatnot. I really don't want to. I want emotion in the ball game, and if I get into discussion about what happened between Jack Caglione, Jared Jones, and Hayden Travinski, it's going to lead me down to what happened in Athens, Georgia on the walk-off grand slam, and then I'm going to get on a really long tangent, and I'm going to yell because that was abhorrent what happened to that young man after hitting a walk-off grand slam. I don't care that it's a rule. Use some freaking common sense. And this kid just got his team their first, I'm doing it. They just got his team their first conference win, and he tossed his helmet in the air when he jumped into his teammates. Oh, the freaking horror. He didn't fire at the dugout, the opposing dugout. He didn't jaw at the opposing dugout. He was celebrating with his team. That's not the umpire being set up for failure with the rule. That's not it. That's an umpire using discretion wrong and making himself a part of a moment that he has no business being a part of, and in turn, costing a kid another game. Spare me with it's the rule. Spare me with all that crap. If you can't celebrate a walk-off grand slam, kick rocks, get the hell out of here. Why are we playing the game? That's stupid. So, see, I didn't want to do that because now I went and got on that tangent like I thought I would. Button on Florida. Button on the Florida series. Put it in a box, tie a ribbon around it, put it in the corner. We're done. Let's go to this. I guess you can call it a question. Like I said, probably a little bit more of a call for help here. Cameron Carter on Twitter said, I'm starting to get worried that LSU is falling too far behind and the schedule isn't getting easier. Can you help me off the ledge here, or is this a real concern? I just don't know if we have the offense. I trust Jay, though. Okay, well, if you trust Jay, you'll know they'll eventually have the offense. But here you go. I'll talk you off the ledge. Y'all, we've been critical for 2 weeks, right? We have, fairly. They haven't been good. But it's been 2 weeks. It's March. We've seen this plenty. The way I'll talk you off the ledge, Cameron, can I call you Cam? The way I'll talk you off the ledge, I'll just cite plenty of examples. And you know what? We'll start with one from another listener that I loved. Not the real Danny. And who is he? Not the real Danny. Asks on Twitter, do you feel like this year's team could compare to last year Tennessee? Started slow with a lot of new players, catch fire to end the season. I replied to him and said, I do. I think that's a great comp. I think that's probably the best comp for this team. So shout out to you, not the real Danny. That is a very keen observation. Y'all, last year's Tennessee team, that was the one that was coming off that year where they were just incredible, 50 whatever in 6 or whatever the hell they were, and they lost the home super regional to Notre Dame, but they lost damn near everybody out of their lineup. They did return their starting rotation, but those guys got off to a really slow start, and when they got off to a slow start, Tennessee did not have the offense early to pick up the slack because they lost everybody. I mean, they lost Beck. They lost Lipsius. They lost. I mean, we could go down the list. Gilbert. Like, we could go down the list and down the list. They lost them all. And that Tennessee team started 5-10 in conference play. Y'all, they got swept by Missouri to open the slate. Started 5-10. They rally. They get hot. They end up 16-14. Go win a road regional and super regional. They end up in Omaha. How about an LSU example? In 2008, and I get it, different coach, different team, all that. But that was also a time when you're trying to build the program back up. Pulmonary was. They start 6-11-1. And then they win 23 straight games in a row, get a national seed, host all the way, and go to Omaha. We've seen this too many times, both with LSU and without, and at other places. Teams are allowed to get better. This team will. Here's the thing you have to look at. LSU needs to start picking it up a little bit. They don't need to fall 6-11-1. They don't need to fall 5-10. I'll be honest with you. Do I think it's going to go well in Fayetteville? No, I don't. But I didn't think that prior to the regular season. I've told y'all here, I think Arkansas is going to win the national championship. And I've thought that since preseason, and have been very upfront with that since preseason. So, no, I don't think it's going to go well in Fayetteville. But can you get one? That's the key for LSU. That's what they weren't able to do in 2008 early. That's what Tennessee wasn't able to do early last season. They weren't able to keep their head above water. I think this LSU team can. This is what you can't do. You can't go to Fayetteville and get swept. You have to win one. You have to come out of there 3-6. And then when you come home against Vanderbilt, that is a winnable series. I know Vanderbilt's really talented. They just went on the road and got swept at South Carolina. Okay? That's a winnable series. And if you do that and you go back on the road and you get one against Tennessee, or maybe you find a way to win that because Tennessee's shown some flaws. They went on the road and lost the series to Alabama, who just got swept by Georgia. If you can find a way to just keep your head above water, stay as close to 500 as you can in the league, you have a chance to make hay. It's going to sound crazy, and a lot of y'all are going to think I'm nuts, but if you do that and you make hay at the end of the season, LSU is going to host. Like, they are. If you do that, sure, you could get swept in Fayetteville and then drop a series to Vanderbilt and maybe another one on Tennessee, and you are in that 5-10 spot. And at that point, no, you're probably not going to host, but you can still get hot and go on the road and make your way there. There is a path, and they're going to get better. We've seen it with this program. We've seen it with others. Even last year, what was one of the big concerns for LSU last year? Not the bullpen, something else. They weren't sweeping anybody. Why can't LSU sweep? They kept winning the first 2 games of the weekend, losing on Sundays, and that's when the pitching concerns started popping up. Then they go to Ole Miss. Hayden Travinski pops the homer in the 9th inning. You sweep them. You come home the very next weekend and sweep Alabama. You went from not being able to sweep anyone to sweeping 2 teams in a row, one of which ended their season in a super regional. It will happen at some point. They will get hot. Tread water. Keep your head above water, and when you get there, make your run. They have a path. Everything is on the table for this team still. Do they have issues? Hell yeah. And we've talked about all of them here the last 2 weeks in our weekend recap. So I'm not shying away from that. I'm just saying it is March. Let's let it play out. Is it going to go well in Fayetteville? Probably not. But then again, it's baseball. If there's one team, I'm going to say this matter of factly, if there's one team that's on LSU's schedule that should beat them, but has just consistently throughout the last decade found a way to lose games against LSU, it's Arkansas. We need to go through all those. I get it, their program's in a different spot now than it was, but they've shown a propensity to do that in the past. So, no, I don't think it's going to go well, but who knows? Just get one. Come home, try to win a series against Vanderbilt. See what you can do on the road in Knoxville. Then you get to go to Missouri, and they stink. You should win all 3 of those games. And if you do that, you're going to be really close to 500 in the league with 4 weeks left to play and everything still in front of you. So don't jump, Cameron. Don't jump. There's plenty of time. They just have to make strides. And they get their chance to do that Tuesday night against South Carolina. Against Southeastern. Man, that was going to be a good transition, and I just crapped all over it. They're going to get their chance to do that against Southeastern Tuesday night. Let's give you a brief little look through of that game, and then we will then we will wrap it up. So you win the game 4-3, obviously in Hammond. That was a wild game. You'll remember Cade Anderson. That was when we struck out the first 12 the first 7 or whatever that he faced, struck out 13 of the 15 outs that he recorded in 5 innings, gave up 1 unearned run. He was awesome. And you got some great relief pitching from Ulloa, Lure, Guidry, and Nate Ackenhausen. And you had the rally late in the game in the 9th inning. Paxton Kling had the double, the 2 RBI double that ultimately gave LSU the lead, and you won it 4-3. You got handcuffed for most of the night. Southeastern's a good club. If I look at them right now, they're 17-7. They just won their first Southland Series. This is a good ball club. We know that. When you look at a starting pitching matchup at the time of this recording, neither team has announced. I'll be quite honest with you, for LSU, I don't care who they start, because I think you're destined to see a lot of arms again in this game against Southeastern, and I'm fine with that. Like I'm all for the Maneri midweek approach here. Throw a guy an inning. Like that's what you did last week against Louisiana Tech. I thought it was valuable to get a lot of different guys work. I think the same thing here. I don't care who you start, because I don't think they're going to be in there very long. So get as many guys work as you can. That's what I want to see from LSU on the mound in this game against Southeastern. As far as who Southeastern starts, again, they have not announced. I can tell you Hayden Robb and Carson Robb, both of them have started plenty of midweek games for Southeastern this year. In the last matchup, you saw Dalton Aspalm, if you're LSU, and he was really good for 2 innings against the Tigers. Maybe they bring him back. We'll see. They have options there as well. So, and again, I think you'll probably see plenty of pitchers for Southeastern. You're going to see a lot of the same guys that you saw. You saw Jackson Rodriguez. He's their great closer, and you roughed him up, and that's what made that comeback so awesome, was that you were able to rough him up, because he's really good. You'll probably see him again at some point, especially if the game is close. Lance Love, you saw him, and he pitched really well out of the bullpen against LSU. 1 shutout inning. He was great. Aiden Vosberg is another guy that they've used plenty, and you saw him, and he handcuffed you for 4 2/3 until LSU finally pushed a run across against him. So, I mean, I would expect to see at least 3 of those 4 guys again, and then you get into some other guys who, who they've really leaned on, like a Lakin Polk type guy. He's second on the team with 8 appearances out of the bullpen, and he's pitched, really well throughout. Always in the strike zone, only 4 walks to 23 Ks. So they have guys there. Offensively, Southeastern still pretty much the same team that they were. They've actually improved a little bit over the last 3 weeks. They're up to 280. They were somewhere kind of like mid twos, 260, 270, somewhere around there when you saw them 3 weeks ago. And I mean, it's a capable lineup. They're not going to, they have some home run pop, 31 homers in 24 games, but they're not overpowering you with the long ball. They will run, 23 stolen base attempts. They were only been caught twice, so 21 of 23. They play an effective style of ball. LSU just needs to go out there and pitch well. LSU pitched well enough to win the majority of the weekend against Florida. They did. That's really not debatable. I mean, for 17 innings, the first 17 innings, you had allowed 3 earned runs against that lineup. And then, you have the 2-run shot by Cags that you lose a game that you should have won, and then you get bludgeoned on Sunday. But don't let what happened Sunday distract you from the strides they did make on the mound last week. So can you build off that and keep it going? I want to focus in on the offense here because this is a big thing for LSU. And everyone's asking, what does Jay Johnson do? How do you get more situational hitting? And it's not that LSU hasn't had good situational hitting this year. If you believe that LSU has just had no situational hitting this year, you are wrong. I cannot say that more flatly. We spent the better part of the first 3 weeks of the season talking about all the great production they had with 2 outs. You can go back to the game Friday night against Florida. You had really great situational hitting in that ball game. And go figure, you had a great offensive night. How about the game against Texas in Houston? You had great situational hitting. What you've lacked is consistency in the situational hitting. So how do you find that? Well, for me, it's easy. Granted, I'm not the head coach. I'm not the one filling out the lineup card, and I fully understand that. But I'll tell you right now what I said in the recap episode from the Florida weekend. I'll go ahead and repeat it. I think LSU has enough guys that have shown consistent enough production that you should put them in the lineup and let them go and see if it works. And I'll point you to Friday night. That's the lineup I want to see. I said it after the game Friday. I said it after the game Sunday. Ethan Fry needs to be in the lineup. Right now, he cannot throw the ball from left field or the outfield in general. I understand that. So you DH him and you catch Hayden Travinski. Done. Do that. And if you want to put Alex Milazzo in a late inning replacement, do that. That would be awesome. If you do that. You did that Friday. Worked out real well. Travinski had 2 hits and an RBI. Fry had 2 hits and an RBI. And the RBI was with 2 outs, and it was situational. Go to Sunday. RBI, situational hit for Ethan Fry. He's been good at that. If you're looking for that, put him in the lineup. Well, what do you do with Brady Neal and all them? Brady Neal can sit for right now. When Ethan Fry's ready to throw the ball, Brady Neal will get plenty of at-bats. Brady Neal's upside's tremendous. But wedging him in right field isn't the play for me right now. Josh Pearson's been pretty hot. Stick him in right field. Leave him there. Put Steven Milam back at second. You do that, you find a really nice mix of what could potentially be your best offensive lineup mixed with your defensive lineup. And that's what you should be after. That's what I want to see offensively from LSU against Southeastern. I want to see a lineup that mirrors, not to be the spot for spot, but that mirrors the guys you had in there the Friday night game against Florida. Because right now, I think that's your best combination of offense and defense. Like, you're looking at your 9 best or your best 9. Right now, I think that's LSU's best 9. Like Stephen Milam, sure, the first 2 weeks in conference, his numbers have dipped. But on Saturday, he really started to put the barrel on the ball. He had a hit, and they took him out of the lineup on Sunday. Like, I know what Jay says, and I understand what he's saying. I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't use everybody. I get that. But, man, at some point, you're being so inconsistent offensively. At some point, you have to try to find some consistency and let guys have a spot and see if it takes. That's what I want to see. Give me a lineup like you had Friday night against Florida, Tuesday against Southeastern. Let's see how that goes. But if you do nothing else, Ethan Fry has got to be in there because he right now is one of your best situational hitters. And if that's what you're after, he has to play. And we've been high on him too, plenty, back since preseason. So I'm happy to see him, have the success that he's having. All right, I think LSU bounces back. I think they'll beat Southeastern. I think it's probably another closely contested ball game because I think Southeastern's a really good team. But good. Anybody can go out there and just tar and feather somebody in the midweek. Let's see them be putting in some tough spots here. And answer some more adversity because that's what they're going to have to do. They're going to have to answer adversity if you're LSU. All right, I have a full recap for you. That's going to wrap it up here on Musso at the Box. Smash the like button on the way out. Get subscribed up to the YouTube channel and subscribe up on your favorite podcast app. And be with us next time on Musso at the Box.